Hare Krishna, good evening to everybody. We shall start in a couple of minutes. Let's say 1 or 2 minutes and we can start. Let's just wait for others to log in. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So let us start with our class this evening. So I'd like to welcome you back, everybody. I'm so glad and grateful for your presence this evening and your very valuable time to be with us again this evening. So before we start, let me chant the invocation first, asking guidance and blessing from the Guru. Om Aganati Mirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Shakshur Unmilatam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishwapadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Sri Mate Giridhari Swami Iti Namine. Nama Om Vishwapadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devim Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskarya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Anitananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasali Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so once again, we are happy to be back and we welcome you all. And we hope that this evening we can discuss very relevant subject matters, topics, and we can derive some understanding, at the same time, knowledge, and most importantly, yung pwede natin i-apply sa atin ongoing progressive development in our spiritual life. Okay. So you may have remembered yung iba that have joined last week. We started chapter 3. Okay. And this is all about the 4 regulative principles. We did not really finish the whole chapter, again, due to time constraint. So may natira tayong one subject matter or topic, which is called sense gratification in Bhakti Yoga. So we will finish that and then we proceed to chapter 4. Ito na po yung chapter 4 ay yung equivalent or yung matching na sinful activities that will destroy the 4 regulative principles. So that we will be discussing in chapter 4. Pero hatiin din natin ang chapter 4. We will just be discussing 2 sinful activities that will be that's going to destroy the 4 regulative principles. At yung natitirang dalawa, we'll leave it for next Thursday. At saka may isa pang topic at the end of the chapter 4, some parang tips that or guidelines we can follow so that we can, overcome all these struggles and challenges, we can say, sa atin practice of spiritual life. So, okay. So, without further ado, let me share the screen. Ayan. So, can you give me a sign, thumbs up, or kung makikita niyo ito? Yes? Okay, good. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, ito po yung natitirang topic of chapter 3. After discussing all the 4 regulative principles, which is truthfulness, mercifulness, cleanliness, and austerity. Excuse me. We will discuss now this topic. And it's very relevant kasi we will be going into chapter 4, which is speaking about vices, and of course, yung vices of, intoxication, gambling, illicit sex, and meat eating. And parang in preparatory to discussing all this, we could say this very damaging na mga activities. Ito yung muna i-discuss natin, sense gratification. So ano ba yung sense gratification and a path of Bhakti Yoga? So meron tayong quote dito in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, verses 16 and 17. So I'll read this. There is no possibility of one becoming a yogi, or Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. So, yung succeeding na mga paragraph ay maintindihan natin itong verse. And the key word here, makikita ninyo po, ito yun, I will highlight this. Ayun, makita ninyo. I hope you can see that. The key word for this lifestyle of a yogi and a path of yoga is regulation and moderation. So kailangan nating i-regulate yung mga activities natin. So when eating, sleeping, recreation, and work are involved, there will always be some enjoyment available. Di ba? So, but the spirit of yoga is not of, I'm reading from here, the spirit of yoga is not one of flagrant sense gratification. It is rather one of self-monitored restraint according to realization. Napaka-importante yung realization. Self-monitored restraint. And then, but meron tayong realization. It comes with realization. It is backed up. It is backed up with realization. It is not just like a parang blind follower or parang a person who is a fanatic about it. It has to be backed up with knowledge and then realization. So hindi lang sapat po yung knowledge. You have to also realize the knowledge para makakaroon ng solid na tangible progress. Excuse me. So the analogy of salting food illustrates the point. That there must be sufficient material comfort so that you will possess physical strength, enthusiasm, and sensual power. So ayan po, hindi ko nabasahin. Ayan na, you can read it on your own. Just for, again, for sake of time. Yung asin, yung salt in our food, that analogy is given, that kung sobrang salt ilagay mo sa pagkain, it comes to the point na ayaw mo nang kainin. Or conversely, kung wala namang asin, matabang ng matabang, then you don't want to eat it also. The same thing. So it has to be tamang salt lang. Okay? So in other words, itong sensification or the enjoying propensity ay dapat balance lang. But this is in different levels or degrees according to, again, balik tayo sa realization ng isang tao. Okay? Maari yung isang practitioner, mataas yung realization niya. So therefore, he can do without, less salt. Okay? Ibig sabihin, he can lessen his sense gratification. But yung iba na medyo hindi pa, hirap pa sa realization, they may need, kinakailangan pa nila ng mas marami pang salt or sanctification. Okay? So I hope you got that point. Now, dito, bago tayo mag-move to the next page, the last paragraph I will read. Attempting, i-highlight ko yan. Attempting to give up sanctification completely has often proven counterproductive because strength of will is not sufficient to maintain such an extraordinary level of renunciation. When those trying to give up cold turkey suffer a setback or relapse, they are prone to dive into sanctification. Ito po ay sa next page na tayo. As an extreme reaction to self-denial they have been artificially maintaining. Okay? So, although wala dito sa ating handouts or manual, ito yung analogy na ibibigay ko. But I will share it to you all. The analogy of a spring. Okay? So yung spring, if you try to suppress, pipigilan mong spring. Okay? So for some time, makakaya mong gawin. But as time goes on, yung strength mo, ibig sabihin, andito yung strength of willpower, medyo nababawasan na. So the tendency is, bibitaw ka. And once nagbitaw ka ng spring, it will jump all over the place. Diba? I don't know if you have experienced that particular, scenario na may hinawak ka na spring. Tapos bibitawan mo bigla, so it just goes all over the place. So ganito rin yun. If we're trying to suppress our sanctification, it becomes counterproductive nga, sabi nga dito. Diba? Imbis na makakatulong, it actually brings about disaster. Sana hindi naman ganun. Ibig sabihin disaster, pipigilan mo siya, and then hindi mo na kayang gawin, and then you dive into. So parang because you're craving, you're craving and you're trying to suppress it, and then bumitaw ka, and then you even started the worst when it became worse when even you started with, diba? To begin with. So bigyan naging mas lala pa. You could have been better off sana kung walang yung parang artificial na suppression. Okay? So that is what being said here. Then we go to the next page. The key to controlling the senses in spirit is spiritualization. Nabanggit natin yan. One of the characteristics of the soul is that it is attractive to enjoyment. Thus, sense enjoyment must be replaced by another type of enjoyment. So analogy here, may sinasabi dito yung bata. I think you've heard this some couple of times already. So for a child that may hinahawakan siya some harmful object na gusto niya paghawakan, wala siyang alam. So the parent, in order to prevent any untoward incident, kukunin the way or the process to let the child give it up automatically or spontaneously is to give another more attractive and less dangerous na object or toy, so that the child will automatically drop the the object and then take to the alternative object na ini-introduce ng parents. So similarly, in our practice of Krishna consciousness, itong mga sense gratification are in the lower, we could say, taste. So now, to give it up so simultaneously or spontaneously, rather, we are given higher taste of spirituality, na makikita natin, it will give even higher pleasure than, the base pleasure that we may be experiencing with sense gratification with our senses. So ganun po yung technique of trying to give up the lesser sense enjoyment, automatically or spontaneously, para then you can you can make some progress and leave it behind, and get the more actually, which is actually the enjoyment that the spirit soul is hankering and looking for: spiritual activities, spiritual food, for example, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I hope you followed me on that. And now, practical application tayo ngayon. There are times in our devotional practice when chanting and following four regulative principles is very easy. However, there are also times when these practices become very difficult and seem insurmountable. In fact, it has been found that in the beginning, these practices are easy, but with the passing of time, it becomes more difficult to maintain them, what to do. So anong gagawin natin? The practice of spirituality is it's a marathon. Hindi siya sprint. Ibig sabihin matagalan na process. It's a work in progress. And you cannot really say at one point in time now, oh, I already perfected my practice of spirituality. It's still a work in progress. So how can we sustain? How do we sustain this? So ito na po yun. Remember Krishna words in Bhagavad Gita. So when you are, confronted with this insurmountable, for instance, insurmountable and difficult, way in trying to uphold principles. So try to remember this verses from Bhagavad Gita. So chapter 12, text 8. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Person, personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without a doubt. Or in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, text 9, my dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the four regular principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. And then verse 10, if you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to me to the perfect stage. Text 11, if however you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self-situated. And then text 12, if you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action, for by such renunciation one can attain peace of mind. So may levels in Bhagavad Gita, or Krishna is saying to Arjuna, may different levels. Kung hindi mo kayang gawin ito, then you do this. If you can fix your mind on me, which is actually difficult, kasi the mind is all over the place, you know. So kung hindi natin kaya na i-fix your mind, then Krishna tells Arjuna, then try to practice regulative principles. Kung hindi yung kaya yung practice of regular principles, then work for me. You know? Ibig sabihin, you do some menial things for Krishna. Kung hindi pa rin kayang magtrabaho para kay Krishna, give up the results. Whatever you may be, getting in return sa mga ginagawa mo, then give it to Krishna. For example, you are earning something, then give a portion to that to Krishna. Pag tapos sa text 12, kung hindi pa rin kayang gawin, then just cultivate knowledge. Try to understand. So this is the practical application. Now, things to do, next page. This is the last page, I think I'm not mistaken, before we go to our chapter 4. Now, things to do, so para tayong, these are all practical things that we can do. Hindi lang sa beginners in the path of bhakti or any spiritual practice, but even kahit sa matagal na rin. So first, pray to Krishna for strength and direction. Learn to take shelter in chanting. This will help to transform your heart. Find your own maintainable level of devotional practice, one which will gradually enable you to reach the ideal rather than unrealistic and unachievable, and which will only frustrate you. Okay, so yung kaya mo lang, do not compare. You know, sometimes it's said kahit sa asana, sa yoga class, you know, huwag mo titingnan yung mga ibang katabi mo. Oy, kaya niyang gawin, dapat pilitin ko rin gawin. No, it's not a competition with another person. It's actually a competition with yourself and trying to, achieve something. So ganito rin yun. Be realistic. It should be achievable. For the person to your right or left, for him or her, baka kaya niya gawin. Pero sa ako, hindi ko kaya gawin. So this is how I can just, incremental steps or baby steps, kumbaga. Associate with those who have a slightly higher level of practice than you do. Those who are also struggling but maintaining higher standards. So, hanap ka ng kadikit. Hanapin mo sila. O, dito ako sa kanya. I'll try to, get his association para matulungan din ako. Ibig sabihin, those are already like medyo mataas na level, then try to get their company or get their company. Practice some level of self-discipline. It is genuine, and it is a genuine path to higher enjoyment. Things to avoid: getting negative to the point that if you feel like abandoning your self-discipline and devotional service. Feeling remorse when you keep tripping up in practice is healthy. However, beware of a guilt complex, which leads to deceptive, unhealthy habits such as hiding behind masks. Imposing your set of standards on other members of your family, especially spouses. Inspire them by your example. Ayun. Very, very, very important. Why? Because ito ay tinanong last Thursday. Andito na ba si Jonah? Is she here with us? I hope she's here because siya ay nagtanong last Thursday, paano kung, about the meat, sa pamilya. You may be practicing, but the family members may not be able to do so, which is a very practical scenario. So, wag natin i-impose, sinasabi dito, in other words, wag natin sila pipilitin. Don't try to, impose something on them, family members, na hindi nila kayang gawin. What you can only do is inspire. Inspire natin sila by setting a good example. Don't be too hard on yourself. Ask for help from another Vaishnava. Rupa Goswami teaches in a nectar of instruction to accept those things favorable for devotional service and reject those things that are unfavorable. Kung makakatulong sa atin practice of Krishna consciousness or spirituality, then we accept it. Pero kung ito ay damaging at makakasira, or it will just, be detrimental, then give it up. Become responsible for your own spiritual life rather than feeling you must compete with others, which I already nabanggit ko kanina. Endeavor to come to the mode of goodness by striving for transcendence. Evaluate your lifestyle, what things help you and what things act as obstacles. Chanting only a few rounds and adhering to only one or two regular principles does not exclude you from being devotee. Very, very important point. I will highlight that for everyone to see. Again, chanting only a few rounds and adhering to only one or two regular principles does not exclude you from being devotee, as long as Krishna sees that you are trying in his service and keeping the goal in sight, even if it takes you a lifetime to reach it. Imagine that. Okay? So that is what it says, that don't be too hard on yourself. Sabihin mo, ay nako, hindi ko kayang gawin yung 4 na yan. Ang kaya ko 1 lang, 2 lang. At yung chanting ko, hindi naabot yung 16 rounds, 1, 2 lang. So if you have that, if you're in that position, do not say that I'm not a devotee anymore. That's a very wrong mentality. Okay? At least there is, ang sinasabi dito, as long as Krishna sees that you are trying, it's better trying to do something than nothing, di ba? At least you're chanting some rounds, at least you're following some 1 or 2 regular principles. And even if it may take a lifetime. We are living beings in a fallible human being. It's okay to make mistakes as long as we learn from them rather than become lax as a result of them. The regular principles to minimize the risk of becoming a victim of advertising campaign, marketing, psychologists, and therapy gurus. And lastly, the Lord helps those who help themselves. Maybe this rings a bell, or maybe it's a familiar phrase. The Lord helps those who help themselves. If you approach the Lord with sincerity and depend upon him, then the Lord himself will clean your heart from within. So pray to Krishna for strength and direction. So very important point, i-highlight natin ito. The Lord help those who help themselves. So if you're doing something, if you are exerting some effort, then Krishna will help, or the Lord will help, or the Supreme Lord will help us. Okay, so that ends our last topic of chapter 3. Not so much of a interaction here, pero dito sa chapter or unit 4, meron tayong mga interaction and some, writing to do. So please prepare your pen and pencil and paper. So as I've mentioned earlier, for those who have not, were not here when we started, ito po sa unit 4 or chapter 4, we will be discussing, himay-himay natin, isa-isa, but, again, due to time constraint, hindi natin kaya talagang, Because by the way, these courses are given nung wala pa yung pandemic. This is, this is being administered in a face-to-face. So, in a setting where you see each other, the teachers there and the students are there. So medyo mas mabilis, yung pace but here. But anyway, so hatiin natin uli ito, Unit 4. We'll leave the last, we'll discuss yung natitirang oras natin, yung no eating of meat, fish, or eggs, and no illicit sex. Ito po muna ang didiscuss nating dalawa na to. And then we will leave the remaining, no gambling, no intoxication, and tips for those struggling on the path for next Thursday. Okay, so are we all ready? Sandali lang, ha? Let me just check here. Oh. Okay, let us go back to our stream. Ayan po. So first is please buckle up kasi ang daming mga facts, daming mga we could say points that we're going to be covering here. But anyway, if I have not given due attention sa mga, you can go back to it kasi meron na I think everyone has a copy of this. Okay. So una po ang no eating of meat, fish, or eggs, only eat prasadam. Who can say anong this would say this hindrance or obstacle, anong sinisira niya sa apat na pillars of religion? Who can say? Who can say? Yung eating of meat, anong sinisira niya? Compassion, very good. Bhakta KD, or mercy. Thank you very much. Ayan, ang bilis ni KD. Yan. Correct. Balik tayo doon sa atin. So nasisira yung compassion and mercy. Okay? So let us go forward. The 6 main categories of disadvantages of meat eating are health, number 1, number 2, ethics, number 3, economy, 4, environment, 5, karma, and number 6, spiritual. So yung pagkain ng karne, yung mga disadvantages ay ito yon, yung 6 na yon. As I mentioned earlier, hindi natin matatakal lahat ito. I think we will just be discussing the health lang yata. And we will be referring to you for further reference is a book called The Higher Taste. Nandun na po yung lahat i-describe. It's a whole book just discussing this topic. So anyway, let's proceed. Ultimately, devotees are only interested in what pleases Krishna, the spiritual reason, but each of the remaining 5 reasons is also important to consider in pleasing Krishna and making spiritual advancement. So please get ready with your pen and pencil. Okay? So di ba sabi 6 yan, disadvantages. So leave out natin yung pang-6 spiritual reason that which is wished by giving up eating of meat, etc., etc. Then we please Krishna, because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he wants to be offered with a leaf, a flower, a water. He doesn't say that I want to be offered meat, all these things. No. So if a person is asking you to give him this and you give another thing, then he will be displeased. So similar, Krishna is asking us, please give me, offer to me these items. So ayun yun. Okay? So that's the reason behind uh, uh, in the spirituality, the spiritual aspect. So by pleasing Krishna, then, you know, we can uphold this, make some advancement, of course. So ngayon dito, what do you think kaya? Anong sa tingin ninyo? By upholding, we already gave a hint, nagbigay na tayo ng clue. By we please Krishna, that is a spiritual reason. If we do not eat meat, napiplease na si Krishna, natutuwa si Krishna sa atin. So that is the reason. So ayan, it says discuss, but since we are, of course, again, not in a classroom setup, just write it down. Isusulat na lang ninyo. I'll give you a couple of minutes kasi lima yan. Just give one. Discuss this and see if you can see why. Bakit? Bakit in a health category, bakit kailangan natin ito yung mag-give up ng meat? In the ethics category or reason, bakit, again, why should we give up meat eating? Economy and environment and karma. Okay, just give, you may not, give all the answers in each item. That's fine. Because again, due to time constraint. So please write it down. And we can, I'll give you a couple of minutes, maybe 3 minutes, to think and write it down. And then we'll, you can write it in the chat box, or you can share to us, unmute yourself and share it to us. One more minute. Again, you don't have to complete the whole thing 1 to 5. Kung ano lang maabutan ninyo, that's fine. Again, we're just trying to, limit our time. And so we can cover all the topics for tonight. Okay. I think some of you are done, are done, written something already. Okay, so you can type on the chat box what you have written, and so we can just, or you can say it out loud. It's up to you, whichever is the quickest. Oliver, yes, please. Sino pa na? Oliver and Baktake. Si Oliver muna. Yes, please share what you have written. And then si KD. Please unmute yourself.
Ayun pala. Yun. Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes.
Okay. Sige. Prabhu, actually I've written short yung thoughts ko I kinompound ko na lang among the five, yung health ethics, economy, at saka yung sa environment, at saka yung karma. Bale, Prabhu, sa health, meat consumption is scientifically proven to cause health problems. Alam natin yan, na each time na, let's say, high blood ang isang tao, first thing the doctor would say is, nakain ka ba ng baboy? Yes. Nasasabihin, kailangan bawasan yung baboy or huwag na kumain ng baboy or kasing laki lang ng box ng posporo. Yan, I hear that. I hear that all the time from doctors. No, in ethics, killing another being merely for sense gratification, which is the sense of taste, yun lang, Prabhu, is clearly unethical. Sa economy naman, Prabhu, we always hear the fluctuation of the price of meat in the market. So we can see its impact sa economy. Kahit sabihin mong yung sense of taste lang ang gina-gratify natin, yung fluctuation ng presyo niya, it impacts sa economy. And then sa environment, Prabhu, this is I'm basing this on what I've seen dun sa Cowspiracy, that meat farming is harmful and unsustainable, causes more greenhouse gases than all vehicles combined worldwide. Yun ang nakaka-concern dun, Prabhu. And then karmic, ito, I'm only quoting Prabhu Radacharandas, yung kung pag daw kumakain ka ng baboy, kung gaano karami yung buhok sa batok ng baboy, yun yung dami ng beses na marere-incarnate ka as baboy. So I believe that is karmic by nature. Prabhu. Those are my thoughts, Prabhu. Thank you very much for the question.
Yeah. Ilan daw yung buhok mo dito? Ilan daw yung...
Okay. That's true what you have said. Thank you for sharing, Oliver. Tapos si KD, wait a second, KD. I'll just read quickly ang na type dito ni Bhaktin Chantal. Ethics, the violent way in which the animals die just for our consumption is unfair. Economy and environment, the carbon footprint created to produce and even consume meat and animal products is enormous. So much profit is gained by the big corporations for it, but they are not held accountable for the harm they put in the environment. Ayun, na-share ito ni Bhaktin Chantal. Okay, so KD, please go ahead. Kaya ikaw naman mag-share. Please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hello.
We can hear you.
I have a few keywords here, Prabhu, just to give some overview or highlight. So I think for health, I don't want to go far, but I think the recent pandemic is already connected with meat eating. So this does, and the pandemic, everything has something to do with meat, because we don't with the meat we eat. Even before, when I used to eat meat, has already been existing, whether be it seafood or poultry. There is something virus or like health concerns. No, it's a matter. That's for my health. Sa health.
Yes.
On the ethics naman, I'm thinking, Prabhu, it's about the ethical dilemma that has always been in the, whereas it's ethical to kill a living entity or a living thing just for another entity to survive. So for me, it's a never-ending debate, but in the end, it all boils down again that pillar that there's not a need for someone to kill another living entity, be it a human being or animal, just for that person or entity to survive. So that's for me as the ethical part of this discussion. For the
Yeah.
economy, I think it's not only applicable to the meat eating, but I think it's just on a bigger scale of things. It's more on sustainability. So a lot of people have a lot of demands, but siguro in this era, there's really a high demand on meat because globally, um, a lot of people or a huge percentage of the global population, they do eat meat. So this is not sustainable because it's a chain reaction when it comes to health. Whereas they farm meat, they have to fast forward the production of eggs, the growth of meat, cows, pig, chicken. So hormones na ang kinakain or nakalagay sa katawan ng mga animals na to. And they are bred to be killed and to be served to those who demand for the meat. So economy is not sustainable. That would again be connected to the health because it's not organic already. It's full of chemicals and so. And for the environment, similar to Prabhu Oliver, it's actually the greenhouse gases. No, it's surprisingly that it's not about plastic. No, that's is contributing a lot to the pollutions. No, nowadays that's actually just, if I'm not mistaken, 3%. But majority is actually coming from poultry farming, especially cows. So they produce the greenhouse. Majority of the greenhouse gases actually are produced by fart of the cows. No, yun yung nagko-cost actually noong climate change, as what they say. And lastly, for the karma, it's more on again the discussion of killing another living entity in relation to ethical. I need to survive, and what would it be in return when I am the one who's being killed because I need to serve another living body. So parang ethically, is it a sacrifice or is it really a need? Because kailangan mabuhay ng mga tao. And what would be the karma to the one who is actually doing like the slaughtering? So parang in what degree? And what more for those who eat the meat? So in what degree is the karma when it comes to these things? Yun lang po, Prabhu. Maraming salamat po.
Okay, thank you very much sa inyo dalawa, Oliver, KD, at saka si Bakting Chantal, kanina nagsulat siya. Thank you for sharing with us. And it's all true ang sinabi ninyo. Again, I'm very much tawag nito, handicapped because of our time constraint, that although I would like to really expound and give a lot of discussion on this, and it's really the time that it's not really giving enough due time for each topic. But anyway, please read the Higher Taste at doon ninyo makikita yung lahat na sinasabi. Si John na pala sabi, The supply of rain is affected by animal killing as according to Srimad Bhagavatam. Ayon. Siya naman. So thank you for that also, Jonah. So just quickly, naalala ko lang, I cannot cover each and every item, pero yung karma, as Prabhupada said, because we kill, we kill in the slaughterhouses thousands upon thousands of animals. And therefore, the karma for that, wag tayong mag-isip na wala lang mangyayari, na okay lang yon, patay na kakatayin na lang sila sa slaughter and nothing gonna happen. That's a very wrong mentality. The reaction or the karma is that for that killing innocent animals in the slaughterhouses, millions, millions every day, is that sooner or later, babalik din sa atin yon in the form of war. And in the form of war, that innocent children, innocent women, innocent men, na hindi wala namang involved yan sa war na yan, they will be annihilated by nuclear fallout or missile bombardment. Yan. At which is nakikita na rin natin. So ayan, that's one I just wanted to highlight on that. Kasi minsan magtataka tayo, bakit kaya may gera, bakit may digmaan? So that is the immediate reaction of killing innocent animals. So during warfare or time of war, a lot of innocent men, women, children are going to be killed at the same time. Okay, so let us proceed. Balik tayo dito sa atin share. Thank you again, once again, sa inyo lahat ang nagbibigay ng kanilang contributions. Ito, ngayon, to go deeper, etong points of to discuss, medyo mapahaba tayo lahat tayo sa discussion. Paano ngayon dito, sabi dito, may tatlong scenarios dito. Paano yung itlog? The unfertilized eggs. Often yung manok daw, by nature, as a matter of course, yung itlog ay hindi naman na ano lang siya, parang sabi na natin hindi natuluyan at hindi naging chicken or chick, So sabi daw, paano yan? Pwede pa kainin yun. Kasi ang reason naman ay wala naman harm or walang killing is involved. Pwede ba yun? Pwede na lang kakainin itlog na yun? That's one. Another thing is, why do we drink milk? Okay? Sabi dito, devotees, we don't eat animal products or support animal exploitation. Bakit naman tayo ay umiinom ng milk? And then another scenario is onions and garlics are vegetarian, di ba? Halaman naman siya. Why do devotees don't eat onions and garlic? I think others have already discussed this onion and garlic thing. So of course it is this is although they're vegetarian, pero those are strictly as lalo na yung mga monks, this arouses the sexual urge, itong onions and garlic, kaya iniiwasan yan. So that's the explanation. Pero ito, balik tayo dito. Sino kaya makapagbigay ng kanilang, who would like to share their realization on this? Just quickly. Si KD nagtaas ng kamay. Paano yung itlog? Pwede na makainin? Muna, maglabas muna ako sa share screen. Sige. Go ahead.
Just make a wild guess kasi sometimes I've been asked this question as well for a couple of times, and I would just give them a reason. Not reason, but I would say that because chicken eggs, they form into a life. So magiging manok pa sila eh. But milk is a gift. So sabi ko, bigay kasi yun, it actually gives life. rather than formula. It gives milk is being fed to the babies. Ang tawag yung maliit na cow. So I was telling them, I've been asked by different people. Yeah, the calves. Sabi ko kasi yung gatas, ano siya, it gives life. It's a gift actually from the mother cow. But the chicken egg, it's not a gift. It's meant to be. It's meant to be a chick, and then eventually the chick becomes. Yung po yung sinasabi ko, but I don't know if it's correct explanation. Kasi sometimes I caught off guard and then I would just tell this to them. Just a guess lang po, Prabhu.
Okay. Thank you for that, KD. May dito si Baktaron, egg is liquid meat. Nagsabi dito siya sa chat box. Liquid meat. But I think what you said, KD, is more than enough explanation. Of course, there are still deeper, and we can still go deeper on that and research on that. Tama kasi yung itlog, there is life, there is life to that. So for example, tawag nito, i-compare din natin. Let's say kung may hindi siya egg, a fetus, then we can say of an animal, or hindi siya natuluyan, then we can say safely to say na pwede na kainin na rin kasi there's no, parang mo na lang just correlate or parallel, so if you say like that, then therefore pwede ganito, di ba? So if you say that hindi yung pwede na kaiting itlog kasi wala namang killing, then therefore let's say meron mga miscarriage of animals, di ba? Meron naman ganun eh. Or for that matter, even yung mga human beings, merong miscarriage of their embryo. So, pwede na kainin. So, parang ganun din yan. So, parang it doesn't jive. It doesn't sit well with our consciousness. Diba? Ay, may sandi. I still consume milk and eggs and hirap pong tanggalin. Pero actually, I also get why animals milk is not for us. Kasi hindi naman tayo yung baby ng animal. Ayun, sabi ni Bakpin Chantal, yun ang sinishare niya dito. Okay, so yung sa milk naman, although it's coming from the cow, ito yung ito yung instruction from the Vedas, from the scriptures. And even Prabhupada says drinking milk will increase the brain power of the human being. Okay, so ibig sabihin, we just simply follow what the Shastra tells us, kung anong binibigay na instruction for us to follow. So Krishna also drinks milk, in the Mother Yashoda pastime. So ayun. Anyway, I don't want to dwell too much on that. If you have further question, you can text me or Radha Charan or whoever, and we can have more discussion on that. Pero I'm just really concerned sa ating time. So balik na tayo dito. Okay. So thank you for sharing, Bakin Chatala KB. When there is Ansachi Baktaron din. When there is no alternative, ito medyo nakakagulat. Or very, we could say, striking. Prabhupada said, when there is no alternative, one may kill an animal, but it should be offered in sacrifice. At any rate, when there is ample food supply for humanity, persons who are desiring to make advancement in spiritual realizations should not commit violence to animals. Ayun. Okay, so emergency. Now, no alternative. Kung walang, baka that is the last option. Kung walang na talaga. Kumbaga sabi nga iba, kung ikaw ay napadpad sa isang isla sa gitna ng dagat, wala ka na makain, makita mo lang isda, o di kakainin mo ng isda. Wala nang halaman, there's no vegetables around. So, ayun. So human bodies are not designed for flesh eating, though a human being is able to eat meat if he wants. Ito pa ay from Ishopanishad, paragraph 17, at second paragraph. So you can make further research on that. Yung libro ng Ishopanishad, adyan yan. Krishna wants us to be vegetarians or rather Christianitarians. Ayan sa Bhagavad Gita. In times of emergency only, when there is no alternative, meat eating may be allowed. Meron din yan preference. The slaughtered animal has to come back again to complete his allotted time in that species. Okay? So kawawa yung pinatay o kinatay na hayop kasi babalik siya uli. He will have to go back in the same species kasi pinutol mo yung kanyang duration that he should have finished. The foolishness of animal protection societies. So ito po yung read the book Higher Taste, as I mentioned kanina. Facts and figures, health. The time when a human requires the most protein is when it's growing most rapidly. As a baby, the amount of protein in mother's milk is about 1.2 or 1.6%, about the same as fruit. Excess protein creates excess nitrogen in a system, which creates fatigue. Meat contains a lot of uric acid, which leaches calcium from the system. People who eat meat have the weakest bones. Ngayon ko lang alam din yan. The body can deal with about 80 grams of uric acid in one day. An average piece of meat, 3 to 4 ounces, contains 16 grams. Uric acid is in the bloodstream, creates arthritis. It irritates the tendons and joints. Meat products can carry disease and infections, which nabanggit na ninyo kanina din yan, health, about the health. No? So we'll jump this and we go to the economics and the ethics. And just very quickly, I don't think we have enough time to discuss each and every points dito. We just go quickly. And again, kung meron kayong mga tanong, then we can after the class, we can discuss. Livestock population, US consumes enough grain and soybeans to feed the entire human population 5 times over. So ibig sabihin, kung if we do not maintain meat eating, yung pagkain na ibibigay sa yung grains and soybeans na ibigay dapat sa mga hayop, ipamigay natin pagkain sa tao, then it can feed the entire human population, the entire buo. Walang famine, ibig sabihin, walang magugutom. 5 times over. By feeding grains to livestock, we receive only 10% of the available kilojoules. For every 16 grams of grain and soybeans, we get 1 kg of flesh in return. So again, sa economy, as we were asking kanina. So ito yung mga items. We'll skip this and go down dito sa end of the page. Sa health problems, many forms of cancer, including bowel cancer, as well as poisons attacking nervous system that lead to senility. For economy, environment, ethical, karmic, and spiritual reasons. For vegetarianism, you can refer to the various cookbooks produced by Iskandar Cookbooks Coming Back and Divine Grace. Pakibasa na lang po itong Coming Back if you have not read. At saka ito yung Divine Nature. Yung dalawang libro na po yan. You can get further information about the topic on this topic. So, ayun. Let us go to the next topic for this evening, or the third rather, no illicit sex or the practice of celibacy. So please get ready with your pen and pencil again. Do you know how people in South America capture monkeys? Of course, this is related to the topic. So please write it down or quickly write down a note there. Kung alam ninyo paano maghuli ng unggoy, paano mahuli ang unggoy sa South America, what is the technique? And then what is illicit and illicit sex? So please write it down. Ano yung, again, just for our time, saving of time, isahin na natin ito, ano, these two tasks. Number one, how do people capture monkeys in South America? And then what is the meaning for you, licit and illicit sex? So I'll give you a couple of minutes to write down your, back to Oliver, nag-raise ka agad ng kamay. Sandali ha. I'll get out of this. Okay, so let's go. Back to Oliver. Nagtaas ka ng kamay. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes.
Okay. Prabhu, ang alam ko, kasi this is, I have trapper friends. What they do is they get a coconut and then they perforate it just enough that the hand of the monkey would slip inside. And then the trappers, they would scrape just enough flesh for the monkey to have a handful. So the monkey would do, he would slip in his hand and then he would get that handful of coconut meat and then he'll close his he'll close his fist and then he will not let go. He will never let go kahit ano pa mangyari. And then this coconut nakatali ito sa puno and then kahit paano mangyari dumudugo na yung wrist, he will never let go. And then the monkey doesn't realize that for him to be able to escape, all he needs to do is let go. But he never realizes that kasi everything that is in his mind is, I don't want to let go of this prize. This is my prize. And stupid as it may, Prabhu, sorry for the language, hindi na nare-realize ng monkey. And this also relates to illicit sex. And then when a person engages in illicit sex, he believes he has a prize inside his fist. And he will never let it go. And he is too ignorant and too, kumbaga, sense gratified to realize that for him to let go of that suffering, talagang dumudugo na yung wrist, all he needs is to let go so that he can slip his hand out and escape. Tama ba, Prabhu?
Maganda. May connection. It's really related. It's
Kaya
related sa ating topics.
Relation, Prabhu, na talagang ganun lang talaga hulihin ng unggoy. Akala nila matalino sila but they're really not that smart. And it relates to sa ating ini-study na Krishna consciousness, one of the 4 regulative principles, which is illicit sex. It is talagang isa yan sa napakatinding pain sa tao, Prabhu. Lalo siguro sa mga pananakihan. I'm not really sure. Pero I can speak for myself. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, so maraming salamat. Oliver, for that sharing, and it's really very timely and very relevant. Sino pa ang gusto mag-share doon or yun na yan? Wala na nagsabi. Okay, so since wala, I will just roll on. Balik ko muna doon sa atin share. Ayan. So, I don't have to expound more on that kasi nabanggit na ni Oliver Prabhu. Nahuli yung unggoy because of his passion and of course at the same time yung kanyang ignorance. It plays in his mind the passion and the ignorance that he has, that is mixing in his mind yung unggoy na yan. So what is illicit and illicit sex? Okay, ito po ay yung in a broad definition, illicit sex is within marriage. Okay, this is what being taught by Srila Prabhupada. Within marriage, it is illicit. Ibig sabihin you are duly married. Pero outside of marriage life, yun ang sinasabing illicit sex. Okay. Pero still, if we go further, meron sinasabi kahit within marriage life, meron din illicit sex. Ibig sabihin yung parang pinipersa mo yung spouse mo. Okay. So we'll not go too much on that, and because we still have a lot to cover. But isn't sex natural? Ang sabi dito. But isn't sex natural? Yes, but contraceptives are not. Sex is natural and childbirth is the natural consequence of sex. And it's also natural and healthy for a child to grow up in a stable environment where their parents share a commitment to each other. The desire for sex is also natural. It stems originally from the spiritual world, where it is found in its pure form called adiras. Material sex desire is natural for the material senses, but it is unnatural for the pure soul. It is the perverted reflection of adiras, contaminated by a covering of lust, the selfish desire to enjoy and imitate Krishna rather than to serve and satisfy him. Okay, so meron, we could say valid argument na, di ba, sex natural naman yan? Bakit pipigilan natin? Bakit tayo magiging celibate? Why should we follow a celibate lifestyle? And it's natural naman siya eh. Diba? Pero dito, sinasabi, yes, it's natural, but the consequence of sex is makakaroon ng anak. Diba? Pero but human beings are very intelligent in the wrong sense of the word, na they invent contraceptives para kung sila ay makipag-sex, para wala na lang the responsibility of bringing up a child, they administer contraceptives. Ibig sabihin, they want to have sex without the consequence. Tama? Makipag-sex lang sila, pero ayaw nila makakaroon ng babuntis. So kaya nag-invent sila na contraceptives, which is unnatural. So doon na nagpi-play the whole thing of the sex drive and this. Yes, it is natural, but just like kaya sabi natin kanina, within marriage, kasi you agreed na makakaroon kayo ng anak, so you have sex. Pero with outside of marriage, let's say nabuntis yung babae, outside of marriage, so that is illegitimate child, or let's say hindi pa pinalaglag, which is another sin, which is another abortion, another sin na naman yan. Okay, so one lie leads to another lie. Patong-patong na. Okay? So here dito, originally, sinasabi that the sex desire is coming from material, is from the spiritual world, and it's called the adiras. But then it is covered by this material, atmosphere. And because of that becomes unnatural for the pure soul. It becomes unnatural for the pure soul. So it becomes perverted. And yung love becomes perverted into lust, covering of lust. So we mistake this love to our partner or to sino man yung the opposite sex, but actually it's lust that we are projecting. Okay? Pero originally it is in a pure state yung love of God or love of Krishna, the Supreme Lord. So the underlying philosophy in summary, lust or the desire to enjoy the material energy is the original cause of the living entities fall down. Lust is the greatest enemy of living entity, and it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. The greatest object of lust is a sexual enjoyment. Thus, sex desire is known as the binding principle of material existence. It creates a hard knot of attachment in the heart of the conditioned soul. Sex desire is a culmination of the desire to enjoy the material body. The greatest physical pleasure is sex. Everyone has sex desire, and when one engages in sex, it becomes more solidly anchored to the bodily concept of life. Being the most potent form of sense gratification, sex has the greatest potency for hindering spiritual advancement. To attain spiritual perfection, one needs to become free from sexual attraction. Therefore, the practice of Krishna consciousness are designed to help the devotee ultimately conquer this attraction. Now, but if sex is detrimental to spiritual life, why is marriage included in the process of Krishna consciousness? Shouldn't it just be avoided altogether? Ayan, valid, is a valid point that is being raised here, or a valid question. Kung yun ay tigil ng spiritual life practice, yung bakit naman meron marriage? Kasi, of course, obviously, maraming naman na, like for myself, I'm married, and other devotees are married. Bakit? Bakit may ganon? So here, let us read on. The brahmachari and grihastha ashram will be covered in more detail in later section. At this point, it is sufficient to say that lifelong celibacy is not suitable for everyone. Others may find marriage unsuitable and do not need to restrict themselves unnecessarily. The desire to find a partner and have family life is so integral to life and material world, a devotee may feel too uncomfortable abstaining from it for his or her entire life, and to artificially restrain themselves on a high level of renunciation may be more harmful than beneficial. Therefore, Krishna consciousness allows sanctified sexual enjoyment within married life. According to religious principles, such practice is also considered celibacy. Let me highlight that. Therefore, sanctified sexual enjoyment, there's such a term as sanctified, within marriage life is according to religious principles. Such practice is also considered celibacy. So even within marriage life, there's what you call, even you have a partner, spouse, wife or husband, you may be, indulging in sexual activity for procreation of Krishna conscious children. That is called celibacy. Ibig sabihin, mag-engage lang kayo sa sexual activity kasi your purpose is to bring up a child into the world that will become a Krishna conscious person. Otherwise, hindi na mag-engage sa yung husband and wife in sexual activity, and therefore it's called celibacy. This process of regulative gratification allows one to satisfy the mind and senses. At the same time, one gradually becomes purified from the attachment to the point that it becomes free from it. So meron quote from Bhagavad Gita, therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So, kailangan na mag-regulate yung senses, ang sinasabi ni Krishna here in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So yung lust ay nandyan na, but we can conquer the enemy, the lust, if we regulate the senses. I give you example, ako ay natutuwa kasi may aso kami dito sa bahay. And I was, may lalaki babae kami na aso dito. At tuwing lang yung aso, may tawag doon hiti or fertile yung babae na aso. Only when she is fertile, does the dog na lalaki ay lalapit sa babae. Otherwise, hindi niya pinapansin. Mas regulated pa sila eh. And I was laughing to myself. Ito yung hayop, yung hayop ng aso na less intelligent sa atin. They're more regulated than us. Kasi at tayo mga human beings, anytime makipag-sex lang tayo. Anytime that we feel. Pero sa kanila, it's only when the dog na babae is fertile and may heat siya, then maamoy yun maamoy ng lalaki, then lalapit siya. And then makipag-sex sila. And then kakaroon ng puppies. Next page. Sex isn't at all it's cracked up to be. Kung meron kayong question, please just note it down And we'll give time at the end to try to answer your questions. Kasi I'm just trying to go through the materials we have, and then we open up for question at the end. I think this is konti na lang ito. Okay. So sex isn't all it's cracked up to be. Romanticizing all in the movies, all is that, all the literatures and books. Actually, it's not really, the truth of the matter. Materialistic society glorifies sex through its popular idols and advertising, while it plays down the obvious drawbacks. Devotees like to remain conscious of the drawbacks and glorify the saints who exercise self-restraint. Materialists project the idea that sex makes you happy. If this was true, then prostitutes would be the happiest people in the world. Tama? Kung masaya yung sex, dapat yung prostitute ay they'll be the happiest people in the world. Bakit kaya hindi? Consider all the problems related to unrestrained sexual conduct and the benefits of celibacy and Vedic marriage. Think of all the suffering that can be related to sex. Ayun na po. Meron konting tayong reflection dito at pakisulat ulit. Think of all the suffering that can be related to sex. Ano kaya mga suffering na nadudulot ng sex for individuals and society? So hindi lang isang individual na tao, pero sa kabuuan, people in general or in mass citizens. And what is the true value of pleasure of one gains? Compare it to spiritual life. Write your thoughts and ideas here. So please paki-share. Give you a couple of minutes again. Heads up lang po sa inyo lahat. I think lalagpas tayo sa atin allotted time of 8:30 kasi 8:30 na ngayon and we still have some topics to cover. So please bear with us. Pero hindi naman siguro abutin na hanggang as 9. So very quickly, please share your thoughts on this. And one or two of you can share with us what you have. Excuse me. So si Jonah, sige mother, nagtaas ng kamay. Go ahead.
We have this, kasi parang belief that sex is a need to be fulfilled. Sabi nga, it's a physical need. And in the relationship of husband and wife, parang kasama yun na there has to be a sexual relationship. And even in the law, it is a ground para magkaroon kayo ng annulment. Within 5 years, it's no longer consummating. There's nothing happening between the husband and wife. They can file for an annulment for that. So parang talagang nako-condition tayo that it's really part of the need of being husband and wife. So kapag instances na hindi na fulfill ng isang partner yung duty na to for whatever reason, nagiging reason siya para sa partner mo to look for this need in another person. So kaya as it true enough, it can really destroy a relationship yung last when we overthink of it as a need to bind husband and wife. And in fact, there is more to having sex in the relationship of husband and wife.
So yeah, thank you for that. Magandang well said. Kasi may progressive stage, tayo in the Vedic culture. Or the Varna ashram tawag doon, Varna and ashram. Ang ashram ay yung nagsisimula po sa brahmachari or celibate student and it goes up all the way up to the 25th year. Kung gusto niya mag-asawa, then pwede siyang mag-asawa. Then that is called grihasta ashram or household. Okay? And then within that dito lang po yung pwede makakaroon ng sexual activity sa grihasta or household ashram. And then after that, around maybe around 50 years old, ibig sabihin nag-indulge na sa sex, meron na anak. Then there's the next stage of the ashram is vanaprastha or retired, wherein the husband and wife, they still live together pero wala na yung ganyan. Kasi they already went through with it. So hindi mo sasabihin na hindi maghiwalay na tayo kasi tapos na di ba? They still live together for some period of time, and then finally pagka yung last, which is na hindi naman lahat ay not everyone can follow, yung sannyas or renounced order of life. Okay, so Krishna has in society, in the Varna ashram, has made this progressive stages of one's life, na recognizing kasi others don't need to go into the household ashram. They may jump and go straight to sannyas, pero very rare sila. Mostly majority ay dadaan talaga sa ganun. So ayan, the point here is that there is a natural progressive way that this sexual energy, it's actually an energy that can be harnessed for spiritual advancement. If you know properly how to use it, or in other words, if you know how to control it, it will be to your advantage. Ibig sabihin, kung ikaw nagre-refrain or you abstain from sexual activities, it give you more strength and stamina, and so on and so forth in the health side of reason, if you want to abstain from sexual activity. Okay, balik po tayo sa atin. So Prabhupada says here, this is from the book Journey of Self-Discovery. The whole system of materialistic life revolves around this sexual pleasure. But this pleasure is like one drop of water in a desert. The desert requires an ocean of water. If you find one drop of water in a desert, you can certainly say, here is some water. But what is its value? Similarly, there is certainly some pleasure in sex life. But what is the value of that pleasure compared to the unlimited pleasure of Krishna consciousness? It is like one drop of water in the desert. Everyone is seeking unlimited pleasure, but no one is becoming satisfied. They are having sex in so many different ways, and the young girls walking in the street are almost naked. The whole society has become degraded. The men take advantage of the situation. There's a saying in Bengal, when milk is available in the marketplace, what is the use of keeping a cow? So men are declining to keep a wife because sex is so cheap. They are deserting their families. Wow. Prabhupada has written this in the 70s, but now it's very relevant, yung sinasabi ni Srila Prabhupada. It still, has a very strong impact dito sa society natin ngayon. So ayun, the unlimited pleasure na makikita natin sa spiritual practice is, it's just like a drop, yung sexual na pleasure compared to the desert. Ayun na po yung ang pagkukulang sa society, that they are so enamored of thinking that sex pleasure is the only, parang baga, ito na yung pinaka-pinnacle of pleasure. But little do they know na mas marami pang pleasure madiderive if we just simply practice, spiritual activities. It doesn't have to be limited to that activity only. How to keep sexual urges under control. So ito na, the mga practical solutions or practical suggestions at the tongue. The bodily demands begin with the tongue. If one can restrain the demands of the tongue by limiting its activities to the eating of prasad, the urges of the belly and the genitals can automatically be controlled. So ito po ay from Nectar of Instruction. If we control ang tongue kasi makikita nyo yung tongue and the belly is just in one line, one straight line yan. Okay? So if you start with the tongue, if you control your eating habits ay yung kinakain mo, you know, and then it goes to the belly and it controls the sex urge, the sexual urge. So if you eat food that are in a mode of goodness or food are offered to Krishna, sanctified food, then it will just go through, or I mean, it will just go, you know, it has an effect dito sa atin sexual urges. Eat moderately at regular times and keep a balanced diet for good health. For good health, eating for sense gratification at any time the tongue urges you will agitate the senses. Packing the belly up to the capacity places pressure on the genitals. Ayun na po. Lalo pag gabi, wag na kumain ng marami sa gabi. Okay, kasi it will just push. Pag siya may push, it will just push out the semen. So may pressure kung mabigat yung tummy kasi kain ka ng kain. So yan, yun po yung unang suggestion, the tongue. The mind, so paano naman yung mind? The mind, while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops. So ito po, mayroong drawing na elepante dyan, tapos may mga dots. So ito ay very quick experiment. So do not think, everybody listen, do not think of a pink elephant with green spots. So naisip niyo ba yon? So if you think, but I told you not to, diba? Do not think. Ba't naisip natin? Because of power of suggestion, diba? So why do you think is the best way to avoid contemplating opposite sex? Would it be by thinking about how you shouldn't do it, or by absorbing mind in devotional service to Krishna? So in other words, sabi dito, the restlessness or fickleness of the mind, manovega, is controlled when one can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. So instead of dwelling the mind on thinking of his sexual activities or anything related to sex, you bring the mind of thinking of Krishna. Yun ang sinasabi dito. There's a quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya and Hakara Haya Krishna Tahi Nahi Maya Adhikara. Krishna is like the sun and Maya is just like darkness. If the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Similarly, if Krishna is present in a mind, there is no possibility of the minds being agitated by Maya's influence. The yogic process of negating all material thoughts will not help. To try to create a vacuum in the mind is artificial. The vacuum will not remain. However, if one always think of Krishna and how to serve Krishna best, one's mind will naturally be controlled. So ayan, please, the suggestion is that always fill the mind of thinking of Krishna or Krishna's activities, Krishna related activities of Krishna, or literatures about Krishna, pastimes of Krishna, or the holy names of Krishna. So ito po may isang story dito of the monks. And we will end with this story kasi ito ang sunod ay no gambling na. So there were two monks and they were traveling some in the countryside. It may be setting in India or not. However, two monks were walking. One is a little bit elderly monk, and the other is a younger one. So they were traveling and they came upon the river. Meron sila na ilong na dapat tumawid sila doon. So now, but before they were about to cross the river, meron dumating na isang babae na gusto rin na tumawid. At ito yung babae, hindi naman siya masyadong maganda at hindi naman siya masyadong bata pa. Tama-tama ng age niya. So, the monks were looking at each other and sabi, paano kaya gawin natin dito kasi yung medyo malalim din kasi yung ilog eh. And obviously, yung babae gusto rin tumawid. So, immediately, without giving further thought, yung younger monk, mas mabata na monk, ay nilapitan yung babae at sabi niya, dito ka na lang, sumakay ka sa likod ko. Sumakay ka sa likod ko and I will bring you across the river. So yung babae, pasalamat siya, siyempre, at least meron tumulong sa kanya. So they crossed safely and also the other elderly monk, tumawid na rin siya by himself. And then they parted ways. Yung babae pumunta dito sa left, ay yung dalawang monk ay pumunta sa right and they parted ways. And so therefore, after walking some distance, biglang sumabat yung elderly monk, sabi niya, bakit mo sinakay yung babae sa shoulder mo? Di ba? He touched your body and you touched her body. So parang it's a no-no for us as monks. At least, sumagot naman yung younger monk, sabi niya, kinalimutan ko na yun eh, yung incident niya for almost 1 mile or 2 miles while walk, but ikaw dala-dala mo pa rin siya hanggang ngayon. Diba? So, what's the moral of the story? Na, although physically, by physical contact, but the mind is dwelling, the mind of the younger monk was not dwelling on it too much, but the elderly monk was dwelling with it very much. So he was contemplating. Pero isa, immediately, na-renounce niya. Kinalimutan niya na. Okay? So that is, the story is, we shared this story that, again, the mind, sa nabanggit natin kanina, we should fill it up with Krishna conscious thoughts, Krishna conscious, anything related to Krishna. Sabi nga dito kanina, Krishna is like the sun and Maya is like darkness. There is no question of darkness where there is the sun. Okay, so itong mga thoughts that are, that will be detrimental sa ating practice, ay hindi siya papasok. You will not be able to entertain them pag ikaw ay puno-puno yung thoughts and mind mo of Krishna. Thoughts of Krishna, names of, you're chanting Hare Krishna, reading about Krishna, talking about Krishna. So wala, there's no question of that. Ibig sabihin, no gap policy, wag natin payagan na papasok in our thoughts. That is not related to Krishna. Of course, it's easy said than done. Sinasabi natin, but it's, take it gradually, and sure, it's very sure that we can make some progress in Krishna consciousness. So doon na po tayo mag-end for this evening's discussion and class. We tackled the two, you can say, the activities that is detrimental to spiritual practice, yung meat eating, saka yung illicit sex. So yung gambling and intoxication, we'll leave it for the next week, Thursday. A lot of items we will also be discussing there. So please bear with us. Pagpasensya na po kasi yung oras natin hindi talagang kaya na 1.5 hours at nagpas na rin tayo this evening. So kung meron kayong, if you have some questions, we can take some questions. Kung wala, it's still okay because we have taken too much of your time already. And kung meron kayong tanong, then you can send it to us as an afterthought. Kung meron kayo, gusto ko pala itanong, then you can send it to us later this week or before we have the third. Or you can also save it for next Thursday kung meron pa yung mga tanong. Ayun. Okay, so mukhang wala na tayong questions or sharing. Wala. So I'd like to thank everybody once again. Please keep the materials we have handed out to you. Sabi ni John, save for next Thursday. Yes, thank you for that. Please keep the materials that we are given out to you, kasi these are very, valuable na mga handouts that you can refer to it even, years from now. It's still very relevant. I'm discussing with you all about this, which I've learned years ago, but still it's like parang a reminder for me as a practitioner na medyo matagal-tagal na rin. And parang refresher course nga siya, that ay ganito pala yun, dapat ganito pala yan. So please keep these notes with you. And when you have doubts, when you have questions, ito, anong kating ko ngayon? Ano bang sinabi tungkol sa meat eating? Ano bang sinabi tungkol sa gambling? Pero hindi pa natin discuss next Thursday. Ano yung sinabi doon pa tungkol sa intoxication? How can I apply? How can I, get over this urge of sexual activity, of intoxication, of gambling, and meat eating? Ayun. Okay, so sana ba si Radha Chan, are you there or hindi na i-end na natin ito? You want to say something?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. And thank you very much, Sridham Prabhu, again for our wonderful Thursday session. And I just want to say, ingat for everyone. If lahat nag-alarm yung mga phone natin because of the taal. So, ingat for any klesha, the Adi-Daivik klesha, na is coming from nature. That is very natural. Pero we can always take shelter to the holy name of Krishna. So tuloy-tuloy pa rin natin mga programs. Tomorrow, 5:30 Japa session and 7 o'clock Srimad Bhagavatam, and 7 o'clock tomorrow night will be Vaishnava etiquette by Mathurnath Prabhu. Again, Prabhu Sridham, thank you very much. We learn a lot as always. Good night, everyone. Hare Krishna. Hi. Thank you. And just Scarlett. Hi, Scarlett. Hare Krishna. Okay. See you, everyone. Ingat. Harbol.